I don't recall if I said that or not.
Those were all lies, weren't they?
No.
They weren't true, were they?
No.
You said that you were driving to look for a truck, but you really had no idea where the truck actually was.
I had an idea where it was, yes.
Did you ever talk to Jerry Logan about his truck?
No.
Do you know where Jerry Logan lives?
Not exactly, no.
So you were driving around looking for a person that you hadn't talked to and don't know where he lives, right?
Correct.
You are listening to the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, putting the true back in true crime. From New York City, Roberta Glass is now on the record.
Okay, how is everybody? On the morning of September 16th, 2016, in La Crosse, Wisconsin, a distraught man named Todd Kendhammer called 911 to report that a freak accident had injured his wife, Barbara Kendhammer. As Todd told it, he was driving his wife to work, and a pipe fell off a passing truck, injuring his wife. Only one problem: his story was all a lie. No truck was captured on surveillance footage in the area, and the evidence indicated Barbara died from injuries sustained from her own husband. Today we're going to examine Todd Kendhammer's amazing cross-examination and hear from Barbara Kendhammer's cousin, representing a whole bunch of cousins. They collaborated in what is one of the most incredible victim impact statements that I've ever heard. Gives me goosebumps just to talk about. So we're going to look at this cross-examination. So in this case, basically Todd Kendhammer, so we're talking about Todd Kendhammer, he's the one on the left, Barbara Kendhammer's wife. Basically, during the trial, his defense was that they had a very much like Michael Peterson, that he had a perfect marriage, that he and his wife liked to flip houses, meaning buy houses and fix them up and then resell them as a hobby together. They were very invested in this. Interesting thing you'll hear in this cross-examination is that he racked up a $4,000 electric bill that Barbara Kendhammer was not too happy with. Barbara herself worked as a lunch lady at an elementary school. And on the day of September 16th, 2016, Barbara Kendhammer was uncharacteristically late to work. She also did not phone her mother. She always called her mother, who's recently widowed, between about 7:45 and 8 on her way to work. And instead, work called her, the elementary school called her at 8:02, which will give you an idea of what a punctual worker she was. But to circle back to Todd Kendhammer, basically what his defense was: we have the perfect marriage, we took walks every night, and we ate ice cream together. And couples that take long walks and eat ice cream together, they don't have these kind of situations. Deaths do not occur in these marriages in this way. And he's totally innocent, and his entire family pretty much, aside from the cousins, backed him. I don't want to overstate that. You'll hear Jerry Ann Wetstein, her testimony, very upset that they all backed Todd, his children, and of course he had one grandchild, and seemed to be really all sat behind him through this. And an interesting thing to note is that there was a more recent, I believe in 2020, there was a more, I may get that, take that with a pinch of salt. There was, his appeal is being represented by Jerry Buting, who you may know from Making a Murderer, who's trying to get Stephen Avery out of prison. Now he's backing this guy, Todd Kendhammer. So they went right to the usual, right to CBS, right to the same reporter that they always go to try to make this case look like a mystery. But today we're going to look at how he did during cross. And it's not a long cross. It's not a flashy cross. It's just a cross that you cannot believe that he thought that he would do well. So right before this, he was answering questions from his own lawyer and crying and carrying on and trying to say they had the perfect marriage and, answering softball questions. And boy, did his demeanor change on a dime when it came to cross. And so you kind of see this kind of scared elf-like man answering these very straightforward questions. And I didn't really go into detail, but you can see Todd Kendhammer also says, so just right before we get into this cross, his hands look like this. He said these were from catching the pipe. He hit the windshield. He punched the windshield as he saw the pipe, this 53-inch, 10-pound pipe coming towards him in the windshield. And he wasn't sure if the truck was black or blue. No truck, even faintly matching this description, was spotted in the area, although his car was spotted in the area by a passerby around 8 o'clock. And this passerby, who was an electrician going to work, saw no one. So the thought is there's also a blade of grass in the trunk where he probably took out this pipe, and you can see how long that grass is, closed in a blade of grass into the trunk. And this was the condition when paramedics were called. And very interesting, he wanted to be with his wife in the ambulance and they wouldn't let him. He was most upset that he couldn't ride in the back of the ambulance with his wife. He couldn't be with Barb. And almost to a kind of, it felt a little bit like he wanted to be with her, to control her. And you can see his shirt says, "I don't give a rat's," and then there's a donkey. So you can figure out what that says. Lovely t-shirt for the day. So the prosecution didn't have a theory as to why, a motive, didn't assign a motive or present a motive at court. And one of the more troubling things was there was injuries on the back of her head, injuries to Barbara Kendhammer's neck. So not injuries you'd see with a pipe, but Todd Kendhammer worked replacing windshields. So he went into his imagination. It reminds me of The Silence of the Lambs. What do we covet? We covet things that we see every day. Well, in this case, when you need to make up a fake story, what do you go to? You go to things that you see every day. And that's something he worked with every day. And I was telling my boyfriend, and he was like, "Oh, He says, oh, he probably was fixing a piece of glass and thought, this could have killed somebody. And he goes, like, put it in the back of the mind, maybe for later. But there was obviously some kind of fight. Because Barbara Kendhammer can't tell us, we'll never know. But here's how he did on cross-examination.
The morning of September 16th, while you were still at the accident scene, you spoke with Officer Wickland first, correct?
No.
You spoke with Officer Leffelholtz, the first sheriff's deputy was Officer Wickland.
Correct.
And you told him that you were driving to Holman, correct?
Yes.
And you also talked to Sergeant Ely that day, and you told him that you were driving to Holman, correct?
Correct.
And you gave him the name of Justin Heim, and it was a guy you worked with at Crown, correct?
Correct.
So what he's saying is, I was that day, because usually Barbara drove herself to work, I was looking around for a guy to replace his windshield, and he picked up a guy who worked on a different shift named Justin Hein, Hein. And when Justin Hein was talked to, he said, like, no, I didn't need my windshield replaced. I once talked to him a while back, like a couple years back, about someone else. And then he changed his story. He's changed his story 3 times, twice to the police and once in court. So already not off on a great foot here.
You also told your son, Jordan, that the reason you were driving that way was you were driving to Holman, correct?
I don't remember that.
You told Investigator Leinfelder in the interview that we watched that you were driving to Holman, and again you mentioned Justin Heim, correct?
I mentioned Justin Heim.
You weren't driving all the way to Holman though, were you?
No.
You said the keys were in the truck at the end of the driveway, correct?
I did.
You said you did work for him all the time, correct?
I did.
And you said you had just called him a month before, correct?
I don't recall if I said that or not.
Those were all lies, weren't they?
No.
They weren't true, were they?
No.
So that's a theme. They weren't all lies, but they weren't true. And that's something I believe he'll say again. It wasn't a lie. It wasn't true, but it wasn't true. And interesting also to note that his interrogation is very interesting, and the police are not buying any of his story. And his leg is bouncing up and down, and he says, oh, just forgive my leg. I have restless leg syndrome. As if that's what restless leg syndrome is one knee bouncing up and down at a rapid rate. Absolutely the world's dumbest, most hateable criminal. I find Todd Kendhammer to be up there on the list, and it's a good day, any day, that I can play this cross-examination. Excellent cross-examination by, I believe, Mr. Grunke is his name. I believe it's Tim Grunke. Something like that. Grunke's the last name. I'm not exactly positive on his first name. Excellent prosecutor who works with SV victims.
Justin never needed a windshield from you, did he?
Justin said he needed a windshield in the lunchroom at Crown one day, yes.
Did Justin Heim personally need a windshield from you?
Justin Heim was going to purchase a windshield from me, yes.
When you were informed that Justin Heim was talked to and didn't back up your story, you then said it was his friend who needed the windshield, right?
I don't recall if I said that or not.
You don't remember watching the video here with the police?
I watched several videos, yes.
Do you remember telling them that it was his friend who lived somewhere else, it wasn't Justin Heim himself?
I may have said that, yes.
You did say that, didn't you?
I don't recall for sure if that's how I worded it or not.
Well, the police then found Ben Paff, correct?
Yes.
Ben Paff did not need a windshield from you, right?
No.
And now today you have a third story, right?
No. I have the second story.
You told police first you were going to Holman to Justin Heim's house, correct?
Yes.
Justin Heim didn't need a windshield and wasn't even home that day. You then said you were driving to his friend's house, right?
No,
You never said that.
no. Not that I recall.
Okay. Well, it wasn't Justin Heim or Ben Paff. Now it's somebody named Jerry Logan.
Yes. It was that all along.
Well, that's not what you said, though, is it?
No, it's not.
You said that you were driving to look for a truck, but you really had no idea where the truck actually was.
I had an idea where it was, yes.
Do you talk to Jerry Logan about his truck?
No,
Do you know where Jerry Logan lives?
not exactly, no.
So you were driving around looking for a person that you hadn't talked to and don't know where he lives, right?
Correct.
Right. So he's going to just drive around aimlessly looking for a guy. He doesn't know where he lives. So how would he know where he lives? I guess his answer would be he would see this truck with the keys in the door that Justin Hine said he had absolutely no need for a windshield for. And then so he switches it to another guy. And of course, that's one of the things he got busted from, trying to call these guys to set up his alibi, set up his story.
On a day that Barbara has to go to work.
Correct.
You said to the police you drove around Thursday night too, looking for it, right?
I said that.
You said you went to Holman and up to Mindoro, right?
I said that, yes.
That wasn't true, was it?
No,
You never drove anywhere Thursday night, right?
I drove home from work.
After that, you never drove anywhere, right?
I don't recall.
You don't recall if you drove anywhere Thursday night.
No, I do not.
Do you remember telling the police you did?
Yes.
Did you?
I
don't recall if I drove anywhere Thursday night after I got home from work. I went to Michael and Jessica's house after.
I don't remember. I don't recall. Tip of the hat to the society page. Yeah, again, doing this technique. So he's told the police that he was driving around that night, but he's now telling the jury. Hold on one second. Sorry. Now he's telling the jury. He's telling the jury that he doesn't recall whether he drove home from work, but he doesn't recall whether he was aimlessly driving around looking for a house he doesn't know where it is, or a person he's not expecting him. Okay, sounds good.
After work. And then I recall I went home. But I don't recall if I went anywhere after that.
Where would you have driven?
We go for rides all the time.
Did you?
I don't recall if I did or not.
Well, that was another lie, wasn't it?
It was not a lie.
You were telling the police a story that they would go chasing, and you couldn't explain why you were driving north, correct?
At that time, I could not explain, no.
For 3.5 hours, they told you that story didn't make any sense, and you still kept saying the same thing, right?
Yes.
3.5 hours, you never brought up, maybe I don't remember, maybe it was a guy named Logan. You stuck to that story, right?
There was another, yes.
You even told them, I'm 100% of my story, right?
Yes.
You told the police from the very start that Barb worked at 8:30, right?
I did tell him that, yes.
You lied about that too, right?
I didn't lie.
She didn't work at 8:30, right?
There were mornings she started at 8:30.
She was supposed to work.
She was so punctual. They called her at 8:02 to, like, where are you, Barbara? 8:02. That's an incredibly punctual worker. Listen to what he says here. It's just so dumb that he took the stand. So dumb. I mean, they will show this in law school to illustrate why dumb criminals who've lied to the police should not take the stand. Here's his story as to sometimes she works at 8:30, but there is no record of her ever working at 8:30 ever. Take a listen to this, guys.
Work that day at 8,
Yes.
right? You said a typical day off for you, you would drive her to work, right?
Correct.
You'd get up with her, get her water together, right?
Yes.
Then you'd call her to work, or you'd drive her to work, right?
Yes.
And in September, the entire school year so far, every day was 8 o'clock, right?
Yes.
There was no 8:30 time in there, right?
Nope.
And she couldn't just not show up at 8:30, right? She'd have to call.
If she's going to be significantly late, yeah.
Can you identify which day that falls she worked at 8:30?
No, I can't recall.
Well, there aren't any, are there?
There was days that she started late.
Would you like to see her time records again?
I don't need to, no.
Well, just to make sure, let's. Exhibit 75 and 76.
His restless leg syndrome has magically been cured, apparently, on the stand. He doesn't seem to have any restless leg going, although he is shifting in his seat quite a bit here.
I'm showing you exhibit 76. Work records. Apologize, Your Honor. 76 is her work records from that September. Can you show me a day in there where she worked at 8:30?
Well, I can't show you a day that she worked at 8:30, no.
Good, thank you.
But I can also, okay, I'll just leave it at that. Yeah, thank you.
He's like, we'll just leave it at that. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, I've just been caught in a total lie. We'll just leave it at that. Yeah. Yeah, that Midwest politeness comes out. We'll just leave it right there. Okay. Okie doke. Okie doke, sir. Yeah. Caught in another gigantic, ginormous lie. Oh, I loathe this guy. I loathe him. I can't tell you. I just, and every time a jury gets lied to, it's really like they're being spat in the face. But when I talk to the great John Luanne, the king of the cold cases, he says, there's only one thing a jury hates more than being lied to. It's being emotionally manipulated. So right before this, he's crying about Barbara and putting on this whole show. And then we have this twerp, this absolute lying twerp just getting cut down to size. It's so delicious. I'm so happy he got convicted.
You know that her work called at 8:02. You heard that testimony, right?
Yes.
They knew she had to be work at 8, right?
Yes.
Is it possible Barb just didn't know for the first time that year she had to work at 8:30 instead of 8?
No.
She knew she had to be there at 8, right?
Yeah.
And at about 5 minutes to 8, the two of you were driving north on County M, right?
Correct.
And she didn't call in to work, did she?
No.
She would have been late, and she knew it.
Yes.
She wasn't able to call because she wasn't physically able to call, correct?
She would have been able to call, yes.
Well, you'd already heard her at that time, hadn't you?
Nope. I did not hurt Barb.
Her purse was all located in the back seat on the seat, correct?
Correct.
So this is something that you'll hear from killers a lot, from Michael Peterson to Scott Peterson. I would never hurt my wife, but you would, or I didn't hurt my wife, but you did end their life. You wouldn't hurt them, but you would end their life. It's a really interesting turn of phrase that they all seem to do. I would never hurt them.
She couldn't have called if she wanted to. She couldn't even reach her phone.
She could have reached her phone.
In the back seat?
Sure.
Do you have a reason why she wouldn't call in when she knows she's got to work at 8 and there's no way she's going to make it by 8?
I don't have a reason.
That would be out of character for her, wouldn't it?
Yes.
She was a punctual worker,
Yes.
worked on time all the time.
Yes.
If she was late, she'd call in.
Yes.
On the day that she died, She didn't do the one thing that she always did.
Yes.
You don't find that odd?
I find a lot of things odd, yes.
You have no explanation for that, though.
I do not have an explanation for that, no.
She worried a little bit about her mom's health, correct?
Correct.
She even wanted Joyce to move in with you, correct?
Correct.
According to Barb's phone records, it looked like she called her mother almost every morning on the way to work. Is that right?
Almost every morning, yes.
In September, for a couple...
Did you guys catch that hard swallow? That's really interesting. That's something I never caught before. So on the mention of Joyce, Barbara's mother, who you'll hear from the cousin, Jerry Ann Wetstein, you'll hear what wonderful care she took of her mother after her mother was widowed, and she wanted her mother to move in with them. And that seems to be takes a hard swallow. He looks at the jury and takes a hard swallow right after that. And that may have been some of the source of this fight. In addition to this $4,000, she wrote nice on it, on the $4,000 electric bill with exclamation marks. So if you think I'm being too hard on Todd Kendhammer, there is also lots of forensic evidence that proved that this pipe could not have come through the windshield and that it was actually a pipe from the back of the trunk. All sorts of, forensics, spatter evidence, and that he had to be punching something that had to be the source of the blood, meaning something, meaning Barbara. Not he thought it was I think he says originally he thought it was a bird coming through the windshield, and he punched the windshield, and you'll hear it. It gets even more absurd as this goes on. It's not super long, but it is interesting.
A week straight there, it looked like she called on her way to work, but she talked for 5-10 minutes.
Correct.
And it was about 7:45 every morning?
Yes.
You called Joyce that morning at 7:22 a.m., right?
Yes.
And the phone call lasted 50 seconds. Did you talk to her directly or leave a message?
I talked to her directly.
And if Miss Adams said she didn't get a call, she'd be wrong?
Yes.
That was a short phone call compared to normal, right?
Yes.
And even though Barb was a passenger in the vehicle, she didn't call her mom that morning,
No.
right?
No, she didn't.
Another thing that on the day she died, she didn't do that was normal, right?
What's that?
Call her mother, talk to 10 minutes.
There's several mornings that I've called her mother instead of her.
So he's saying that he called the mother, but the mother's saying she got no call. And it sounds like the mother was wise to what an absolute despicable twerp Todd Kendhammer is and was.
Mr. Kendhammer, Exhibit 48 was the chart of the phone calls that Barb made to her mother on the work days, the weekdays in September. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And every day that wasn't Labor Day or a Friday and Saturday, she called her mother, didn't she?
Yes, she did.
The time range was around 7:45, give or take 5 minutes. Am I right about that?
Yes.
And the times ranged from 7 to 10 minutes.
Yes. 5 to 10 minutes.
On Friday the 16th, she not only didn't call her mother at 7:45, she also didn't call work when she was going to be late. You have no explanation for that, do you?
No, I do not.
Did she always keep her purse in the back seat on the seat
Usually, yes.
with her phone in it so she couldn't reach it?
I'm assuming so. I don't know where she had her phone all the time.
Well, you gave her a ride every morning, you said, when you were home and she was working.
Yes.
When you gave her a ride, wasn't she having the phone with her, talking to her mom?
No, not when I was with her. Usually she wouldn't have her phone with her.
Would she keep it close to her?
I don't know. I don't know where she kept her phone.
Okay.
So she called her mother every time, every day between 7:40 or 7:45, and when she got to work, she used those 15 minutes. and now he can't remember where she kept the phone. And one of the things that was very suspicious is that there was glass and dirt in the seat, as if the window had been broken with no one in it, and no glass from the windshield in the car door, so that the car door on the passenger side had to have been open when this force was made, this big pole, basically steel pole stuck through the windshield. And let me see if I can, do I have a picture of it? It's in the intro. You can see it. It's like two giant marks.
You talked about having no stress in your marriage. You were about to change work schedules on that Friday night, correct?
Correct.
When did you know about that change?
Month before, 2 months before.
Your son thought you had the weekend free, correct?
Correct.
Barb also thought you had the weekend free?
No.
Weren't you already in trouble at work for calling in sick too much?
No.
Can you have 5 points against you at work
I had 4 points against me at work.
for calling in sick?
Yes.
So you were getting in trouble for calling in sick to work?
I would have got a verbal yes.
Okay. Well, I just asked you. You were getting in trouble for calling in sick too much to work?
I hadn't yet, no.
Well, you were about to if you called in sick one more time.
Yes, I was about to.
Friday night, you were going to call in sick anyways
Correct.
and risk a warning.
Yes.
Instead of taking the free day that you could have had, right?
Correct.
She didn't like you working nights and weekends, did she?
She didn't care for it, no.
And now instead of camping, you were going to either work or have to call in sick and either miss camping or get one more point against you at work, right?
Correct.
And you said you switched.
So this is another source of tension between the two, it sounds like, whereas he had to work or else he was going to get in trouble. And he says, oh no, it's just going to call in sick and just get a verbal warning. And he had a history of going from job to job to job. He was not well liked by his coworkers by and large. As you can tell, he's a horrible human being. But that's my assessment of him. But Barbara loved camping, loved the outdoors, and this was a weekend she was really looking forward to. So we're supposed to believe that it was no big deal, that he was not going to honor his commitment to work. It was much more important to skirt on the edge of being fired and go camping with his wife, and that this was there's financial tensions building up. There's tensions over his working nights and weekends, which he didn't like. And of course, it seems like there's some tension with the mother. That's what I get with that hard swallow. And the fact that he says he called her and he didn't call her. Usually these people in the position that Todd Kendhammer on trial for these kind of crimes will avoid calling the family member that's pretty perceptive.
Shifts because you wanted to help a guy out. Is that right?
Correct.
Isn't it true that you had a problem with the guy on first shift?
A lot of people have a problem with somebody on first shift.
Were you one of the people that had a problem with the person on first shift?
I have a problem with him, yes.
And that's why you switched shifts. It was your idea, right?
Part of it, yes.
Okay. Well, you left that out in your direct exam. I wanted to be complete.
Okay.
When you said that you were going camping that weekend, you said you were going to use that money for camping. Remember that?
Yes.
Why did you need money for camping?
We didn't.
You said that you were going to use that money for camping.
Yes. We would have used it.
You said that Barb was the one responsible for bills?
Yes.
Did you have some unpaid bills in your vehicle?
No. I had one, I'm sorry. It wasn't in my vehicle, I don't think, though.
What was that one?
Allied Electric.
And how much did you owe Allied Electric?
I think it was $4,000.
Did you also have a conversation on Thursday by text message with Barbara about another unpaid bill?
From Best kept.
Yes.
Yep.
And Barb sent you a photo of a note, and the text message said, "Nice!" exclamation points, right?
Yes.
And the bill was from January 16th.
My apologies. I got that confused. So he had a $4,000 bill, but he also had another bill. That's the bill she wrote nice on, not the $4,000 bill, the electric bill. He's got another bill from Best Kept, also unpaid. And it was her job to pay. And as you can imagine, as a lunch lady in an elementary school, these are working class people. And they were resourceful, but flipping houses can be very unpredictable. You often don't get the price that you think. You can often put too much into them. It's not a guarantee, and you can get huge, like $4,000 electric bills. Guess, I mean, I don't know how you even work up a $4,000 electric bill. I would assume that would be from working on these houses that they were fixing up.
Yes.
And this was September 15th.
Yes.
And the bill hadn't been paid.
It had been paid. It was a cash pay. They forgot to mark it paid.
Did the note to them say, Todd, how about a little communication on why this is not getting paid?
Yes.
Sounded like they weren't having ability to reach you. From January to September?
What's that?
From January to September?
Yes.
It's your position that that bill was already paid.
Yes.
You were flipping houses, and was there a problem with the last house you flipped selling on time?
You know how often that happens. You pay a bill and they don't mark it as paid in this day and age. This day and age. What is he saying? It took 6 months for the check to get there. He paid by check and it didn't get there. I mean, he has this cocky yes that just makes me so livid, where he's like, yes. Is it your contention that you paid that bill? Yes. Yes. I'm going to just blatantly lie to the court, lie to the jury, and I challenge you. I challenge you to challenge my answer. And then, of course, this prosecutor is great. He's like, yeah, I will. I'll keep on it if you want. Oh, it's so delicious.
No.
Did the cost more than you thought?
No.
Didn't you have to use some credit cards because you weren't paying the house on time?
We did some work in the basement of it, is why we did.
You had been fired previously by A1 Glass,
Correct.
and you had left Glass Service Center because it was too hard work for them?
It was. What's that?
You left Glass Service Center because it was too hard to work for 4 bosses at once?
Yes.
And you were in your own business, but you left because of business differences?
Yes.
Do things have to be your way?
No.
Were you concerned, or was Barb concerned that once again at Crown you're going to have to leave because you're having difficulties with people?
No.
That you're going to have to change your schedule because you're having difficulties with people?
No.
When the police noted scratches on your neck, you first said that that was from working with glass, correct?
I said that, yes.
You don't work with glass at Crown, do you?
No.
And you work with windshields, but that's not the same as working with broken glass, right? I assume when you install windshields, you're not getting scratched up from broken glass.
It depends how bad it's broken.
Well, were these scratches from glass?
No. Not from glass doing at home.
You said it was from working with glass.
Correct, I said that.
That was a lie.
It wasn't a lie.
It was not true.
It was not true.
Classic Todd Kendhammer. It wasn't a lie. It was not true. So he had scratches on his neck, and my boyfriend's laughing. He just can't believe this. It's just one of those cross-examinations. I remember watching this in real time when it was live, and I came late to the case, so I was asking people, well, was there a truck? Was there trucks? No truck. I wasn't sure what was going on. But as soon as this cross-examination, I said, oh my law, what did he think would happen? He's going up against a really smart, really experienced prosecutor, and he thinks that this is going to fly with a jury. So we got the second, it wasn't all lies, but it wasn't true. Now we have, it wasn't a lie, but it wasn't true. Goes in the Guinness Book of World Records of amazingly dumb things said on cross-examination.
Scratches were from her trying to get you off of her, weren't they?
Nope.
The two of you were fighting and she was scratching your neck?
Nope.
She was scratching your neck, her nail broke. Looks like a fight, doesn't it?
No.
Not at all?
Well, it might look like it, but it wasn't.
You said that you had to, in the police interview, you had to drag her out of the car. You remember that?
I do remember that.
You also said that she rolled out at first, but you put her back in. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
You said that the door kept closing. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
If you're standing between the passenger door and the car when it's open, you'd be facing Barbara on the seat. The door would be behind you, right?
Beside me, yes.
Wouldn't it just be easy to just keep the door on your back, hold it open, and attend to Barb?
A lot of things would have been easy.
Well, that would have been easy, right?
I can't say that.
Well, you can keep the door open.
A lot of things would have been easy if she had just done everything I'd said. If she hadn't caused trouble, a lot of things would have been easy. Isn't that what he's saying here? Now, I also told the police that he didn't drag her out too nice. So to my mind, that indicates he's telling us that there was trouble in that car. So we don't know exactly if he ended her life in the home and staged this, or if she was still fighting, if there was some kind of fight in the car. I believe the forensic evidence indicates, and she died in the hospital, so that the fight was still going on in the car as this was happening. All this is happening. So listen to how he attends to Barb. Absolutely disgraceful.
Easily with your behind, right? Right?
You could, yes.
And you said she first rolled out, but you had to put her back in to get the pipe out of the way, right?
Yes.
How was the pipe in the way?
I don't remember how it was in the way. It was hanging in the way.
In the way of what? What was in the way of?
The pipe was hanging through the windshield,
Yeah?
down by the seat,
Yeah? What was in the way of?
getting Barb out of the car.
Okay. The pipe wasn't lodged in the windshield solid, was it? It was loose.
Yes.
You could just take that pipe and just slide it back out from the inside and attend to Barb, right?
In a perfect world, yes.
Well, in any world, right? In this world.
Objection argumentative. Sustained.
Why wouldn't it be easy in this world? Slide the pipe out?
How is that argumentative? I think the judge is just feeling sorry for him there. I don't know. Throwing a bone to the defense. I didn't find that particularly argumentative. He's maintaining that the pipe lodged from the window to the seat, making it impossible to move Barb. The prosecutor's saying you just move the pipe out. You just push it the other way out. And he's saying in a perfect world. So why not? Why isn't he allowed to push back a little bit more on that? I don't know. He just asked the question again in just a different way. Fine. But okay. To me, that just seems like throwing a bone to the defense.
I wasn't thinking that.
Well,
I don't know. I mean, the door wouldn't stay open, and I was trying to contend with her, and
she was unconscious?
At that point, yes.
It wouldn't have been easy to just pick her up and move her out, would it?
It wasn't, no.
Why wasn't it easy?
Because something was caught on her.
What was caught on her?
I don't know what it was.
Well, there wasn't anything down by her feet, was there?
Something down there was caught on her, yes.
The only thing in the photos is her shoe.
Okay.
Well, what would have been caught on her?
I don't, something was caught on her.
For speculation. Asked and answered. Overruled.
You don't know?
I don't know.
One of her shoes was left in the vehicle, and the other shoe was behind you, next to the car, right? Were they kicked off in a struggle outside the car?
No,
Did it look like scuff marks from a shoe on the side of the car to you?
I didn't see it.
You saw the pictures.
Yes, I did.
Did you throw one shoe back in the car and couldn't find the other shoe because it was so far behind you?
No,
Well, you didn't drag her out over that seat, did you? The passenger seat? Did you pick her up or drag her out?
I kind of pulled her out.
Pulled her out? You saw the dirt on the side of the passenger seat, right?
Yes.
Didn't look disturbed, did it?
No,
Now, you said to the police that a pipe came off the truck. Do you remember that?
I did say that, yes.
You said it a number of times, didn't you?
I did, yes.
You actually said that you saw it as it came off the truck, right?
I did one time, yes.
You said it rolled off the truck, right?
I thought so, yes.
Now, today you
Wait, he did one time? So wait, are we supposed to think that this pipe came off the truck more than once? I did one time see this. So basically right there, in the way I hear that, he's admitting that he said that it was a lie, which we all know it was a lie because the forensic evidence and common sense tells us it's a lie. And this whole cross-examination tells us it was a lie. But I mean, right there, I hope the jurors are paying attention. I did see it once. What the heck is he talking about? I mean, I thought that Charlie Adelson's cross was pretty bad as far as tailoring the evidence and just looking like an absolute horrible human being. But as far as terrible crosses, this is what it means when we say you're eviscerated, destroyed, demolished, and cross. This is what it looks like.
said you didn't know what it was until after it hit the car, right?
Yes.
You thought it might be a bird at first?
Yeah.
Did you think a bird would come through the windshield?
No.
You wouldn't have to hit your fist at the windshield for a bird, would you?
No.
If you didn't know what it was until after it was in the car, why would you need to hit the windshield?
Because I did say at one point that it was a pipe.
Well, you said at one point, but did you see a pipe coming at you through the air?
I did yes, I did see a pipe coming.
At what point?
I couldn't tell you. I don't remember.
It went pretty fast, right?
Yes.
And if at first you didn't even recognize it, you had even less time to react, right?
Yes.
And you motioned on direct examination of how you punched the windshield, and you motioned with your left arm across your body up towards the windshield, right?
That's how I thought it was, yes.
But you had marks on all 8 knuckles of your fist, right?
Yes.
And injury to your thumb, right?
Yes.
You think reaching over your body, you wouldn't just hit the back of your hand?
I don't know.
Well, it's because it didn't happen, right?
Yes, it did happen.
You punched the windshield with enough force that quick because you thought you saw a pipe coming at the windshield.
Yes.
And you didn't react in front of you or reach out for Barb, you punched the windshield?
Yes.
With both hands?
With one hand for sure.
Well, how the injuries get on the other hand then?
I don't know. I don't remember.
From punching Barb?
No.
Not from punching the windshield?
It's not from punching Barb.
It's not from punching the windshield either.
I don't know what it's from.
You're the only one there, Mr. Kendhammer.
Well, I said in one interview I thought I hit it with both hands.
Okay. You let go of the wheel?
If I hit it with both hands, I had to have, yes.
You said you didn't hit the brakes.
I don't remember hitting the brakes, no.
You didn't lose control of the car?
I don't remember losing control of the car, no.
And after that, you must have hit the brakes to make the turn on Bergen Coulee, right?
Yes.
You drove for a little ways on Highway M before Bergen Coulee, right?
Yes.
You didn't lock up the brakes, did you?
I don't recall.
Did you see any skid marks on the road? Do you remember locking up the brakes?
I do not remember.
While we're on that topic, your memory seems to fade at certain parts, Mr. Kendhammer, and be solid in other parts.
Okay?
Is it possible you're making this entire story up?
No.
It's not possible.
No.
When you made the right-hand turn, you then put your foot back on the gas?
I don't recall.
Well, you had to go another 300 feet, right?
Well, it's a downhill slope, I think.
You were coasting.
Is it possible that you're making the whole story up? No, it's not possible, because I can't admit to what I've done. I have to keep my phony, fake persona of a good father, a loving husband going. And I'll go to my grave saying that this freak, improbable accident happened rather than tell the truth. And what's interesting, what happens at his sentencing is that the judge says, gets 30 years. And the judge says to him, I may, you will do yourself a favor if you just come out and say what really happened. But until you get honest, we can't help you. And the cousins basically come at it the same way. A lot more compassion than I have for him. I'll tell you that.
I don't recall.
You would have had to put your foot on the gas to go down 300 feet, right?
I don't recall.
You must have put the foot on the brake to make it stop, right?
I don't recall that either.
Well, logic would say you'd have to, right? It's not
It doesn't have to. I don't recall if I did or not.
How did you get it into reverse without hitting the foot on the brake?
I don't know if I put my foot on the brake. I don't remember.
You put it in reverse, the car would start going backwards, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And you didn't just put your foot on the brake, you just let it drift backwards?
I don't recall if I put my foot on the brake.
Okay. Now, the car's drifting backwards, and you're just letting it drift backwards, is that right?
I apparently thought it was in park because I must have went to get out or pulled the wheel. I don't know.
Why did you turn the wheel to the right?
I have no idea.
Did she turn the wheel to the right to try to get out?
No.
You must have turned the wheel to the right to end up backwards in the ditch.
Yep.
Don't know why you did that.
No.
Because you're lying and you can't keep your story straight?
No.
It's hard to make up facts, isn't it?
No.
Once you're back in the ditch, then you did.
It's hard to make up facts, isn't it? No, it's not hard to make up facts. It's hard to make up facts, isn't it? No, it's not hard. I've been making them up. I've been making this up as I've gone along. I've changed my story 3 times about who I was driving around to see. And then it gets super creepy. He's going to talk about the adrenaline rush that he had. Oh. Wait till we get into that.
Move the car into park, right?
I don't recall if it was in park or not.
Well, it was in park when the police got there.
But I don't know if it was when the first responder got there.
Okay. When did you touch the rearview mirror to put a bloody fingerprint on it?
I don't know when I did.
Was it knocked because the two of you were fighting and you had it straightened out?
No.
You said you got a bruise on your leg from jumping over the gear shifter, right?
That's what I thought it was, yes.
When did you jump over the gear shifter?
I didn't jump over it, I jumped into it.
At one point you said you were more on her side than your side.
Okay.
Were you?
I don't recall.
Of course not. Objection.
Jack, be nimble. Jack, be quick. Jack, jump over the gear shift. He jumped over the gear shift. No, he jumped into the gear shift. And that's something you'll see a lot with these defendants, playing with language. So the police officer, detective will write down, he said he jumped over the gear shift. That's how he bruised his leg. He got scratches on his neck, not from his wife clawing at it, but just from working with glass, not at home working with glass, meaning it's nothing that comes from the home. So this whole crime comes from problems in the home. And it's very interesting that he doesn't have any reason why he does anything. It's all in a perfect world. I can't remember. I don't recall. And in real life, anybody who's taken an acting class knows that we do things with motivations, even, as simple as we go and get a glass of water because we're thirsty. We, it's like everything we do has some motivation to it. We're not mindless zombies, just sort of wandering around doing things that we don't know why we're doing them.
To the comment.
Sustained.
You did not see Randy Erler drive by?
No,
You did not hear him drive by?
no,
Did not hear a truck going past your car?
no,
You told police that nobody would stop for you.
they wouldn't.
Well, he would have if you called.
So Randy Erler, this is the electrician who was on his way late to a job around 8 o'clock that morning. He saw a car in this condition on the side of the road, and he saw no one in it. Door open, and he just thought some young kid had gone into a ditch, run out of gas, I don't know, something. And he said he would have stopped and helped if he had seen anyone in the car.
Right?
Okay, if I would have seen him drive by, I definitely would have called.
You said you were hollering and hollering for help, right?
When the first responder went by us,
Well, before that you weren't. Mr. Erler didn't hear anything.
I don't think Mr. Early would have heard it with his windows up.
He said his windows were down.
Okay. I don't know what time Mr. Early went by.
Well, he said between 8:02 to 8:04 he got to his work site, which was only a minute away. He must have got there before you called 911, right?
Maybe, yes.
On the 911 call, you sound pretty frantic.
Yes, I was.
But it took you a couple minutes to do that, right?
Yes, it did.
If you were talking on the phone that way, likely Mr. Erler would have heard that, right?
Yes.
You didn't, though, because were you keeping her down the ditch and trying to shut her up?
No.
You didn't have an arm across her throat causing a fracture to the cricoid?
No.
You didn't have your finger across her lips causing bruises on the inside of her lips?
No.
But you just didn't hear Mr. Erler drive by?
No.
Help was 5 feet away and you had no idea?
No.
And he didn't see anybody and didn't see a crack in the windshield? You heard that?
Yes.
When you first ended up in the ditch, you said the first thing you did was go up behind the car to get to the passenger side. You remember that?
Yes.
Why would you go down the ditch to the back and not just in the front where the road is?
Because I would have had to go up the ditch to get out there.
Did you go in the trunk?
I don't remember.
Now there's some grass in the trunk. You saw that.
Yes.
The grass would have been tall there, right?
Yes.
Pretty good sign that the trunk was open, right?
Yes.
You don't remember.
Nope.
There was some dirt inside the trunk and it looked like something like the pipe had been dragged out over the back of the trunk. Remember that?
I do, yes.
Pipe was in the trunk.
Okay.
You went in the trunk to get the pipe.
I did not go in the trunk to get the pipe.
You went in the trunk for some other reason?
I didn't say I went in the trunk. I don't recall if I went in the trunk.
There'd be no reason other than getting a pipe out. Is there?
I can't tell you that.
Because you got the pipe out.
I did not get the pipe out of the trunk.
You took her out first, and I think you said you fell backwards, so her head would be facing away from the road, correct?
Yes.
That area would have been relatively flat, correct?
I think so.
You started doing CPR right away, right?
Yes.
When the car first went backwards, why didn't you first feel for a pulse or attend to her, try to stop the bleeding or call 911? Why was your first reaction to get her out of the car?
She was bent over.
Did you straighten her up?
No,
Why not?
because I didn't know the extent of her injuries.
So you just decided to yank her out of the car instead?
It was a pretty good adrenaline rush. And I don't think I was, I wanted to get her out of the vehicle.
So he calls it a good adrenaline rush. So if you really cared for your wife, if this wasn't some sort of ultimate win, and that's what these kind of crimes are about. I decide, I win, I control. I end it all for you. He's saying you would never use the term, it was a good anything. It was a good adrenaline rush. It was a pretty good adrenaline rush. Let's look at his adrenaline rush, shall we? Look at this. Absolute low life. Ugh.
The first thing to see where the injury is or to see if she's safe or if she's even hit?
I didn't do that.
You didn't do that because it didn't happen, right?
It did happen.
Now she's on a relatively flat spot facing away from the road. Why would you have to spin her around to face up the road to do CPR?
Because her head was downhill.
Her chest was flat?
She was tipped downhill.
You moved her to an incline. The first responder said like a 35-degree incline.
Yes.
Why didn't you just move her up to the road where it's flat?
I couldn't get her up there by myself.
You weren't that strong?
I don't know if I could have or not.
Mr. Mishulin said you had adrenaline-fueled superhuman strength to punch a windshield, but you couldn't move your wife up to the road.
I maybe could have.
Well, you didn't try, did you?
I did not try to move her to the road, no.
At that time, you still hadn't called 911. It took you a couple of minutes to call 911.
I had called 911 at that time.
At the time you moved her.
Yes.
When you took the pipe out of the window, you threw it behind the car. There's no reason to do that, is there?
I don't know. I don't know why it is.
Mr. Kendhammer, isn't it true that you punched her, broke her nose,
No.
caused bruises on her face?
No.
There's blood on both your knuckles, right?
It's not from punching my wife.
There's scratches on your neck, right?
Yes, there was.
She had a broken nail, right?
Yes, she did.
I noticed when we look at photographs from the scene, you weren't wearing wedding ring that day, were you?
I was.
In the photographs from the scene, it wasn't on you.
I took it off
Why would you do that?
because it was bleeding. I didn't know if my fingers were going to swell up.
You were worried about that instead of your wife?
It was when I was standing there waiting to get to my wife.
It's a great cross-examination. You're concerned about his injuries, his swelling when his wife died later. It's in critical condition when the paramedics come, and this is what he's worried about: his swollen knuckles, and tossing the pipe behind the car. His lawyer right after this tries to repair it, but it doesn't go well. But we're just going to finish up with the cross-examination here.
She had scratches on her neck too, right?
Yes, she did.
You were strangling her at some point, weren't you?
No.
You had your mouth over her lips?
No.
You didn't want her screaming for help when Mr. Earl went by?
I did not have my nothing over her lips.
It was after Mr. Earl went by that you called 911, right?
I don't know that.
Well, the first call to 911 was 9:05, right?
No.
It wasn't?
No.
First call 8:05, I'm
or
sorry.
something.
8:05. Mr. Earl said he went by at 8:02 to 8:04.
And I don't know what time the first call was for sure.
Okay. There was no blood in the passenger window, right?
I don't know.
You saw the pictures.
I did see pictures, yes.
My apologies. I said 8 o'clock. That was my memory of it. It's 8:02 to 8:04. So that's when the electrician drove by. 2 minutes. He was supposed to be at a job at 8 o'clock, and he was running late. And he said he showed up at 8:02. So I'm not exactly sure. I've heard the prosecutor say 8 o'clock before. So I guess they agreed on 8:02 to 8:04. But what I heard before was that Mr. Earler said he got to his job at 8:02. So I'm not sure about all this time, but I will take the prosecutor, Mr. Grunke's word for it.
There's no blood on the back of her seat, right?
We're on the back of the seat.
Back of her seat?
Yes, there was. I think there was blood on the back of her seat.
Not on her headrest.
Maybe not on her headrest.
There were bruises on her hand, right?
Yes, there was a bruise on her hand.
Bruises on her arms,
Yes,
her legs too.
yes.
There was pretty much no place on her body where she wasn't injured. But the biggest injuries were to the back of the head, which is so interesting and so dumb that he comes up with a story where the injuries would come from the front. But like I said before, you go into your imagination. If you don't have much of imagination, into things you work with every day. And he worked with glass.
Did you break that mug on the windshield, trying to break the windshield out?
No, I did not.
Is that why the mug was on the driver's side floor?
No,
Is that why the mug was broken?
no.
It's really hard to hit the window where it was hit from your seat as you're driving, isn't it?
I don't know that. What do you mean, from the inside?
Yes. Reaching over your body with your left hand and cocking your wrist and punching it upwards.
I can't answer that.
There was no glass or dirt in the mat pocket of the passenger door, right?
Correct.
There were a number of times where you tried to manipulate the police, didn't you?
Explain, manipulate.
Well, you were lying about her work schedule, right?
No,
You said a number of times she had to be at work at 8:30. You never said 8,
no,
even though you knew every other day she worked at 8.
yes,
Never once mentioned that, did you?
no,
You hoped they wouldn't check it out.
no, I didn't.
You were vague about where the pipe came in and what it did because it never happened that way, right?
It did happen that way, to the best of my knowledge.
You described a flatbed truck as a 2000 truck era.
To the best of his knowledge. So he's making room for another defense, maybe when he gets this low-life lawyer, Jerry Buting. I mean, he's already represented Stephen Avery, and they've got Aaron Moriarty, who's really does the bidding of the wrongful conviction movement. And there's no one too dangerous and deranged that Aaron Moriarty or Jerry Buting won't go to bat for. So when Jerry Buting was representing this guy's appeal, they did a whole CBS special saying that there's a whole bunch of new evidence the jury didn't hear, and that this magical pipe really could have gone through the window, meaning that they've paid off a whole bunch of new experts. Luckily, the Wisconsin courts did not accept this, and he's still in prison, but he has an avenue out. $30 years is not a life sentence. And he's got the whole wrongful conviction movement and his family behind him, because families like this. So it was very interesting when the jury was deliberating, Todd Kendhammer and his children and his supporters, which was basically his whole family, aside from the cousin that you'll hear from in a bit. Fantastic statement. They all gathered around indoors and were joking and making a lot of noise. And the bailiffs kept telling them to be quiet. But as the jury kept deliberating, they got quieter and quieter and more nervous. And when the verdict came down, his son yelled out, "Don't worry, Dad, we'll get you out." I think something to that effect. And then his daughter, physically assaulted by, I think she slammed a door on a local journalist, because of course our local press is the most accurate, does the best reporting in my view when it comes to true crime cases. It's our national press, like Aaron Moriarty, who is so willing to tell the public fairy tales. And anytime you hear a tale like this, like the jury didn't hear all the evidence, there's great new evidence, like a story on these 2020 episodes that sounds like a story of a wrongful conviction, go find the court transcripts, go find out what they're leaving out, because I guarantee you they are leaving something major out. They're lying by omission. And when our press and our media sells us a fairy tale, like they did with Tim Hennis and what was it called? Innocent Victims, made for TV movie starring Ricky Schroeder, when Tim Hennis's DNA was found in Katie Eastburn, when DNA came into, and he was tried militarily and convicted. So he was convicted in the first trial. Elizabeth Loftus, the great memory expert, basically convinced the jury and that all the eyewitnesses were wrong and he was innocent. Then we had these made-for-TV movies. He went around to all these innocence projects on the Joan Rivers show with Elizabeth Loftus, doing basically a Velma Kelly act, innocence act. And now that the DNA has convicted him, not a peep, not I'm sorry, not a trace back. It's just a forgotten memory. Forget it, not important. Just like Sheldon Johnson on the Joe Rogan show, when he goes out there and talks about his incredible sentencing, that was his 50-year sentence for two stitches, because don't even start me on that one. But when that ends, and when he shows himself to be a really deranged and violent predator, don't expect Joe Rogan to apologize. The episode's still up, talking about with Josh Dubin, calling him a miracle and calling him reformed, and talking about how bad our sentencings are, how we have to give people. Sheldon Johnson was given 2 chances by the judge. That's why, and the third time they threw the book at him. The third time he was in front of the judge, he was like, sorry, you get 50 years. We gave you your 2 shots. We're done with this. And he's been charged with murder. So 2 weeks after being on Joe Rogan complaining that he's a victim of our unfair justice system, he kills his neighbor. They find him coming in and out of the apartment, all sorts of disguises on tape, all sorts of things I can't say on YouTube, but tons of evidence of the victim in his apartment in pieces.
Dark color, not white, pocket size, 18 inches to 2 feet. That sounds pretty detailed, doesn't it?
It does sound detailed.
You thought more detail would make your lie more believable.
I was trying to help.
Trying to help by sending the police on a wild goose chase?
No, not sending him on a wild goose chase.
Amanda Knox is the same thing. She was trying to help by falsely accusing the boss of the crime that she was ultimately convicted for. She's trying to undo that slander conviction right now.
You were just setting up your story at that point, weren't you?
No.
You were right away saying you were going to Holman to talk to Justin Hine, right?
I believe right away I said I didn't remember.
In the first interviews that day, you were already saying Holman and Justin Hine, right?
In the first ones, yes.
Well, and in the last ones, right? Not until today we heard anything else.
Well, yes.
When did you first realize that you weren't going to see Justin Hine and Holman?
A week after.
Week after the incident?
Yeah.
They talked to you on
I watched.
September 22nd?
They talked to me on the. Who talked to me?
Sergeant Yaley and Investigator Leinfelder?
They talked to me on the Thursday before. Or Thursday of the accident, yeah.
So he wants to quibble. He wants to start making this about when he talked to detectives. Not about the fact that he lied to them and he never retracted his story.
And a week later, you realized you made some mistakes?
I didn't realize that I made mistakes. I realized that I had different stories.
Well, because you knew at that point they talked to Justin Hine and that story wasn't going to work.
No, that.
He realized he had different stories. It wasn't a mistake. He didn't misremember. He realized he had different stories. Oh, what a terrible liar. A terrible, awful liar. And the thing that I'm thinking about looking at this is I'm thinking about how he's doing in prison. He must be so hated in prison. Because prison is not unlike high school. You have to have, even among the worst of the worst, you have to have a certain amount of skills to get along with other people. And we know Todd Kendhammer has none of those skills. He goes from job to job to job, having problem with people in first shift, second shift. Oh, I hope it's really unpleasant for him. That's all I can say. I loathe him. I loathe this guy.
That wasn't why.
That morning, when you said you were working by yourself, right, in wood shop?
Yes,
And you had Jordan's phone with you, right?
correct.
Jordan wasn't with you, though.
Not at that time, no.
And you came down to the sheriff's department alone, right?
Yes,
And still had Jordan's phone, right?
yes.
At 8:45 that morning, they called you, right?
I don't recall what time it was.
Well, in the recording, Sergeant Ely says it's 8:45.
Okay,
At 8:52, you called Justin Heim.
I did not call Justin Heim.
You sure?
Positive. I'm
Imagine what the jury's thinking here. So he's calling Justin
Can I
Heim, being
say
like,
something
back
to
me up
add
on
to
the
that or
story,
not?
bro.
There's no question right now.
okay.
We don't have these records.
Go ahead.
Well, let's make sure we got the right number. Maybe I'm wrong. 790-5347.
That's Jordan's phone, correct?
Okay. So I'm handing you Exhibit 150. And can you read the top number there? It says call records from.
790-5347.
And there's two highlighted calls. Do you see them?
Yes, I do.
And what's the number that's dialed?
No, have we received this? Object to reading from a document we've not received.
You identify those as Jordan's cell phone number, right?
Overruled.
All right. So then it goes to redirect. So that is Todd Kendhammer. Yes, he is very elf-like. Who said that? Let's see. This is by Pro Artful Living. Yeah. By Bo. I'm sorry. By Bo Artful Living. So as horrible as or as wonderful, as delicious as Todd Kendhammer's cross-examination, or as bad as it was for him, let's put it that way, Barbara Kendhammer's cousins come up and they do an incredible job Hold on one second. Please hold. On the sentencing. So this is when he's been convicted. So we're going to fast forward in time. He's been convicted. And here, and so these are the victim impact statements urging, this is Barbara's cousin, Jerry Ann Wetstein, speaking for a lot of the cousins. And it gives you a really good idea of who Barbara was and what was taken from this family. It is one of the most powerful victim impact statements I've ever seen, and seen read in court. And I just wanted to share it with you guys.
Jerry Ann Buckner Wetstein. Good day, Your Honor. My name is Jerry Ann Buckner Wetstein, and I am one of Barbara Kendhammer's first cousins. I am here today. I do not stand alone, but unified with my siblings who live in various areas across the United States. From the north, my sisters, Sandra Bookner Alden and Michelle Bookner Eby. From the south, my brother, Thomas James Bookner. From the southeast, my sister, Dana Bookner Davies. And lastly, from the northwest, my sister, Angela Bookner Young. We have co-created this letter, guided by the courage and strength of our first cousin, Barbara Carol Adams Kendhammer. Joyce, her mom, is our aunt. David, her brother, is our cousin as well. And Michael Service, Barb's son-in-law, works at our family's plumbing business. We are family.
So she says, we are family too. She says, listen, so all of these people who've been defending Todd, his basically the daughter's husband who works at our family business, we are family too. And she'll talk about how no one through the entire trial, seats were reserved for people to sit in support of Barbara. Not one person sat in support of Barbara. And that will tell you about the shame that these families feel. They rather support a twerp, a low-life creep like Todd Kendhammer than face the truth about what really happened in their family and his ridiculous story. It wasn't a lie. It wasn't the truth. It was one of my stories. Calling his friend or calling whatever Justin Heim, being like, "Yo, buddy, back me up." Saying, "Oh, I didn't call him. Oh, here's the number. You called on your daughter's phone. You called to get one of your coworkers to give you an alibi as to what you were doing that morning." Ugh.
Family too, with heavy hearts and compassion for all involved. That being said, we are compelled to stand up for Barbara so justice can be served and her soul can rest in peace. I am here today to address this court because it was proven in this very courtroom that Barbara was murdered, and today her murderer will be sentenced for this crime. It was also proven that Barbara did not die in a freak accident, but instead courageously fought with her last breath to stay alive. The marks, as well as the blood left inside and outside the car, indicate a violent struggle occurred prior to her brutal death. Especially concerning are the scratches on her assailant's neck and chest, which compel us to write this letter and face Barbara's murderer on her behalf.
I love that she calls him Barbara's murderer. Perfect.
Those very scratch marks were her last communication to those of us in this world, so we would seek the truth about her death, no matter how painful that truth might be. Barbara found the courage that day to fight back. Therefore, we stand here today united with that same courage, asking you to sentence her killer to the maximum penalty possible. Barbara Carol Adams was born March 4th, 1970, to proud parents and a protective big brother. She was the apple of her daddy's eye. He adored her. She thrived with her infectious laugh and big blue eyes. Her mom, Joyce, is an outstanding cook, and Barbara picked up those culinary skills naturally. Barb loved the outdoors and just about any kind of animal. Growing up, our families were close. We spent many get-togethers around a fire, roasting marshmallows and laughing at their family's farmstead in West Salem. Barb grew up into a beautiful young woman who worked hard while at the same time always looked impeccably put together. She married and started a family. She took great pride in being a mom, and she loved her children very, very much. Her home was meticulous. She cooked homemade meals. She was a timely and exceptional worker at West Salem Middle School, all the while fulfilling her roles as daughter, sister, mom, grandmother, niece, cousin, aunt, friend, coworker, and community member. Barb was one who was always willing to lend a hand to whomever needed it. She enjoyed lawn work, gardening, decorating, and crafts. Becoming a grandma to sweet Carlin, her little peanut, was one of Barbara's most treasured and blessed moments. She was in absolute bliss when she was with her. After her dad, Babe, passed, Barbara took extra special care of her mom. You would see them out shopping together. Barbara stopped at her home regularly to check in on her. Barbara included her mom in activities with her family, as well as talking with her almost daily on the phone. They had the kind of relationship that would make most mothers and daughters envious. You could see and feel the joy and love they shared in each other's company. As we watched the trial unfold, our hearts were broken when we learned there were seats saved for anyone who would sit in support of Barbara. But no one did for the entire 9 days. All the while, the seats in support of her murderer overflowed. They say silence is violence. One cannot blame Barbara for not confiding in anyone about her fear for her safety. As we have sadly seen, who would have believed her? Who would have stood up for her? Know that in spirit, we believe Barbara and her father, Merlin Babe Adams, filled those seats behind the state, guiding the state as well as the jury, painstakingly revealing the truth about her murder. Many in Barbara's extended family did not come here during the trial out of disbelief. No one wants to believe that someone who professes to love you could also be capable of brutally beating you to death with their bare hands. The horror of knowing she suffered terribly while being strangled and having her skull fractured by her assailant is gut-wrenching. We cannot help but wonder, was she crying out? Was she begging for her life? We do know she was fighting and clawing to stay a dutiful daughter and sister, loving mother and grandmother, trusted coworker and friend. This is not to say Todd Kendhammer is beyond redemption for his crime of the violent murder of his wife and mother of his children, Barbara Kendhammer. But the only clear pathway for redemption to occur would be if he tells the truth about what happened that day, accepts responsibility and accountability for his part in Barbara's death, and seeks forgiveness. There is not one of us here today that has not experienced anger or rage in our lifetime, but to blatantly and repeatedly lie to family, friends, co-workers, and law enforcement requires him to serve the full penalty for his crime. We ask the court this day to sentence him to life in prison Sincerely, Jerry Ann Bookner Wetstein, Sandra Bookner Alden, Thomas James Bookner, Angela Bookner Young, Michelle Bookner Eby, Dana Bookner Davies. Thank you, Your Honor.
It gives me goosebumps each time. That is the truth. Unfortunately, they didn't get it. He did not get life in prison. And he walked out. A lot of the people that, even with all the forensic evidence and everything that was shown, still did not think that were not convinced that Todd Kendhammer was guilty until this sentencing, because when he was given 30 years, he grins ear to ear like he won something. And their logic, you can read it in the comments, is if he were innocent, he would be screaming, no, what, what, no, what are you doing? Instead, he walked out of there practically skipping. So, terrible decision by the judge, I think. I think this guy is highly dangerous. I don't think he should ever get out of prison. And maybe that's where I part with the cousins. I don't know if he is. I don't think he is capable of any kind of redemption from this. He told us how it felt. It was a pretty good adrenaline rush. And what was his concern with his own, with what my dad would call his favorite subject, his swollen fingers. As life is slipping away from his life, he's worried about the ring on his finger and his hands. Poor Barbara Kendhammer. I mean, the one mistake she made was marrying this guy. That's all I can say. That's what I have for today. I'll be back tomorrow. Please hit the thumbs up. It really helps. It really helps the algorithm. Please share this video. Subscribe to the channel. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, leave me a 5-star review, and I'll be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. Have a great night.